Man City 2, Liverpool 3. The Reds set to head off to Wembley yet again after seeing off Pep Guardiola's side in the FA Cup semi-finals. 3-0 up at half-time, left to sweat late on, but Sadio Mane with his brace after Ibrahima Konate had opened the scoring, getting the job done. I'm Guy Clarke, alongside me Matt Addison, as we bring you reaction to that pulsating FA Cup semi-final win over Man City. And Matt, you've been at the game, you've been at Wembley. I mean, just tell us what that atmosphere was like. It felt as though it was absolutely bouncing and the ground was shaking.
Yeah, it absolutely was, and it was absolutely deserved as well, really, from that Liverpool performance. First half, I think Jurgen Klopp has just told television then that he thought it was one of the best halves that Liverpool have played under him. And I mean, yeah, I'd have to agree. Being in there, being right in amongst the Liverpool fans, it was just an incredible atmosphere, really, from minute one. And I think part of that probably was they were a little bit riled. I'm sure we'll touch upon why in a few moments' time, but yeah, it was, in terms of on the pitch, an absolutely perfect day for Liverpool. Really, really impressive. And yeah, you could list off the players. Every single one of them played superbly well. And I think that the biggest thing for me really was just the contrast to what we saw last week. They looked a little bit nervy. They looked a little bit on edge. But today, first half, I thought they were absolutely the opposite of that. The sort of reverse was the case. City looked a little bit edgy. City were the ones who didn't quite get the presses right, and Liverpool kind of played round them and found it fairly easy going, really, in the first half. It was quite incredible how far they managed to get ahead. And, I'm sure people will look at the second half and think maybe it was a little bit nervy at the end, and obviously it was. But I think that first half, Liverpool had got themselves into a position where they could afford to not switch off, but certainly take their foot off the gas, and that's what they did. Obviously, more big games to come, but yeah, they put their place in an FA Cup final.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, you mentioned there the contrast to just last week at the Etihad. How big do you think that was in terms of the messaging, probably building up the full week for Liverpool? Start the game fast, start it hard, really get in their faces, and I'm sure not serve up a first half as to which was put on display at the Etihad.
Yeah, I think that's what would have been the message, isn't it? We know that Liverpool didn't play particularly well last week. They would have known that. They would have known that wasn't really the way that they play. And I think probably Manchester City would have known that. But I don't know what it was in terms of that reverse. Obviously, Liverpool, we thought, would be a lot faster. I think the team that Jurgen Klopp picked were the ones really to kind of put that marker down ready before they'd even kicked off. You look at Luis Diaz, you look at a couple of the changes, they were very much front foot Liverpool, going for this type of vibe. So yeah, I think that was obviously important. In terms of City, maybe it was just that Liverpool caught them by surprise a little bit. Maybe they were a little bit more intense than what they thought. Obviously, it's only 6 days since they last played each other. Maybe they were expecting a similar Liverpool performance, but I don't know. It would be a surprise to me if that was the. Obviously, they've made a couple of changes. There was a couple of big players missing for them today, but I think they'll be very disappointed, and Liverpool very much capitalised on it. I thought they were by a mile the better team, obviously, in the first half, and the scoreline didn't particularly flatter them.
This season, we've seen a changing of the guard, haven't we, through the middle of that front three. Roberto Firmino so long, the number 9. Diogo Jota seems to have kind of nailed his kind of colours to the mast of being that main focal forward. But in recent weeks, obviously since the arrival of Luis Diaz, it has seen Sadio Mane given the opportunity up front. And he was named man of the match today. He got 2 goals, the second of which was absolutely sublime. The first of which was everything Jurgen Klopp wants from a number 9, no?
Yeah, I mean, he's been magnificent, hasn't he? I mean, I don't know whether it's just an increase in kind of confidence off the back of what he's done for his national team. But since he's come back from AFCON, he's almost been a different player, really. I mean, his numbers this season have always been pretty good. I think he's at 18 goals that he's got now in all competitions, I think, this season, which, without Salah and Jota doing even more than that, I think would probably get a little bit more of the attention. I think he's kind of had a bit of an underrated season, but there's no doubt about it for me. He's stepped up to a completely new level through the centre of the pitch, playing in that role. The pressure that he applied obviously gets him 1 goal, but it wasn't the only time he was doing that. Every single time that City had the ball across their back line, they just looked a little bit nervy and a little bit on edge. And I think that is something that he brings and Firmino and Jota don't do. I know Firmino is obviously very, very intelligent, but he's not quite got that intensity. He's not got that speed to be able to kind of look like he's not going to bother running after it and then suddenly click and make someone panic. I think, he's very much got that under his belt, Sadio Mane. And Diogo Jota is, again, similar sort of intensity, but maybe doesn't quite have the game intelligence and the ability to do that in the same way that Roberto Firmino does. So, yeah, in terms of off the ball, absolutely superb. And yeah, it was one of his best performances of the season by some distance. I think it was just a really rounded performance. And like you say, the second goal, I think most people would have took a touch there, but didn't need one, put it right into the corner. And yeah, like I say, the goals have kind of gone a little bit under the radar today. I think Jurgen Klopp will be just as pleased with his all-round performance and his all-round game. But I think for me, it's kind of becoming obvious that front three that they went for today, that's probably the best three at the moment. I know Salah hasn't been in the best of form, but he's going to be in there regardless. Luis Diaz, I thought, was excellent, and Sadio Mane as well. So, yeah, if Liverpool are in the same situation, the same form, the same injuries for the FA Cup final as what they were today, I think it would be a bit of a surprise not to see that same trio up top, which when you think of the quality of all five of those players, for Mane and Diaz, and obviously Salah even having a kind of blip, by his own standards, I think that's a fairly big statement. I think Sadio Mane 100% now would be the number one in that position.
Yeah, huge statement, as you say, given what Diogo Jota has done for Liverpool at times this season. But I suppose it's about making sure the players who are the ones in form and the ones performing are the ones who are picked at this stage of the season. Your thoughts then, overall, kind of where Liverpool sit? Of course, second in the Premier League, but that I'm sure will have taken a huge amount out of Manchester City. They seem to be walking wounded at parts of kind of the closing stages in that game. Of course, Kevin De Bruyne on the bench and Kyle Walker not even involved for them. How much do you think these kind of two battles with Liverpool and Atletico in the week are going to have taken out on them? And will it play into Liverpool's hands, do you think, in the battle for the league title?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mentioned Sadio Mane obviously going away to international duty and coming back and looking refreshed and looking a lot more confident. You'd have to think that off the back of a result and a performance like this, Liverpool as a team would be able to have a similar kind of impact for them moving forward. So I think that the confidence that they'll take from it is going to be huge. I think it's been a bruising week, literally, for Manchester City, figuratively as well. Obviously, a couple of injuries. Kevin De Bruyne was on the bench, but I think telling that he didn't come on, he obviously wasn't really ready. They just wanted to have his name on that team sheet. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? We know Liverpool now can still win all four. City can only go on and win the two, but I don't know. I think we knew before this game that Liverpool had a stronger squad than Manchester City. We knew that they were in the better kind of position, really. They've obviously got the better Champions League semi-final as well, which could come into it, not just in the Champions League, but in the Premier League games around it. It's just, you don't want to say it, but it is looking more and more set up that they could just go on and do all of it and win all of those four things. I mean, again, you don't want to get carried away. You don't want to say it's definitely going to happen or anything like that. But I think there's been a few kind of telling signs now over the last couple of weeks, really, that one or two things have kind of gone Liverpool's way. There's been one or two injuries. There's been one or two little moments of fortune and little decisions. I think probably Pep Guardiola would look back at today and wonder, possibly would it have been a little bit different had Rodri played, for example. I think that was a pretty big mistake from him. But yeah, it's looking good. I'm not going to say they're going to go on and win the quadruple, but they're in with a real shout.
Yeah, it could be the season of a lifetime, especially off the back of last season and the fans not being there. I thought, as I said, you're right at the top, they really had a telling part in today's game. Just the atmosphere that the Liverpool fans brought to the game and really did kind of serenade and push the side on more and more, going for the kill even in that first half and getting the 3-goal lead. But I want to talk about the midfield, because at the Etihad, it seemed very uncharacteristically off. Fabinho, one of those, but today was immense kind of mopping up in front of that back four. And Thiago Alcantara, well, he got the assist for Mane's goal, but just the bigger the occasion, the better the performance it kind of feels from him.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I mean, I mentioned before about the contrast really between Liverpool and City from last weekend to this weekend. I think that the biggest difference was Fabinho was at it this week. He was absolutely brilliant from start to finish in terms of the way that he kind of dictated the play and won the ball back. That's kind of the real Fabinho, if you like. That's the Fabinho that we've kind of got used to. Last week was the anomaly, but I think for me that was the obvious difference between the midfields. I think last week Liverpool looked a little bit scared, a little bit nervous. Fabinho looked like he'd forgotten how to move his legs, whereas this week they just dominated that area of the pitch. Obviously, Naby Keita in there as well from the start, which was an interesting one. I think he did okay actually in terms of keeping the ball for Liverpool and making sure that obviously last week we saw a lot of it, that every time Liverpool got the ball, they tended to give it straight back. I think that midfield today, the Keita, Thiago, Fabinho trio is very much one that is set up to be able to keep the ball, which against a team like Manchester City is absolutely crucial to be able to have that ability just to put your foot on the ball, give yourself a breather. And we saw that a few times. It tended to be Liverpool penning City in this week rather than last week. It was just Liverpool being penned in for most of that first half. So, yeah, I think the balance was spot on, but I think individually as much as collectively, they were just all much, much better this week. Fabinho, as I say, excellent. Thiago with the passing and the ability just to nick the ball back, really. He's not ever going to be able to come into big challenges like Fabinho and emerge with the ball, but he is getting much, much better at not diving in, waiting for that moment, and then just taking the ball away and being able to take it and dribble off and then find a pass. So, yeah, it's a real good blend to have, isn't it? And obviously Jordan Henderson, I'm sure, will be disappointed not to have started, but, you know, I would imagine the fact that he's not played today will mean he's in from the start on Tuesday night. So, yeah, plenty more matches to come. But for all three of them, really, really impressive. And probably for Naby Keita, you'd probably say the best period of his Liverpool career, to be honest. He's managed to be fit and consistent. I suppose you could say the same for Thiago as well. But yeah, really like the look of that midfield today. And I think, to be honest, on paper, looking at it, when you saw the two teams at the start, you probably would have fancied Liverpool to get the better of it. But it doesn't always work out quite like that. But you know, today, absolutely a gulf between them. I think that the midfield were the reason why Liverpool lost didn't lose, lost the points, drew the game last week. They were very much the reason why they won this one.
Yeah, definitely. Before we go, then I want to just touch on one City player in particular. A few comments in the chat box regarding him, and we've lauded Fabinho, but the man holding the midfield for the other team, Fernandinho. Are you with me? How did he stay on the pitch?
Well, it's the same every week, isn't it? You see tackles which would normally be yellow cards wouldn't get given for him. I think he did end up with one today, didn't he? I've not seen the replay back actually properly. I was actually sat in the ground just behind the TV cameras. I don't know whether that was a red card or not. You'll have a better idea.
It was first half. There was an early one. I think it was Thiago. He just kicked. He just went up to. It wasn't anywhere near the ball, kicked him, and I thought, well, that should have been a yellow card. Wasn't a yellow. Then there was a one. I think Robertson may have nicked the ball past him down the left-hand side. He stepped across. That was Thiago. Yeah, it was definitely. No, sorry, that was Diaz. Was definitely a yellow. Escaped somehow. I'm pretty sure there was a third one before half-time as well. It led to our colleague Ian Doyle tweeting something along the lines of, "I'm not old, but I remember when Fernandinho was once booked." And then there was the slide challenge in the second half, which it was a yellow and nothing more. But equally, he should certainly have been on a yellow card before then.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing as well. The sliding tackle that he did end up getting booked for that one. That was the one that he got the yellow card for. A couple of minutes later, Sadio Mane with a little clip that was just really a foul gets a yellow card as well. So I think that was a frustration really for lots of people in the Liverpool end. How can one be a yellow card and the other one be a yellow card and all things equal? But yeah, thankfully didn't matter in the end, and Liverpool more than deserving of a win. I think, like I say, the midfield was an important position on the pitch today, and I think the fact that Rodri wasn't there, certainly the fact that Kevin De Bruyne wasn't there, that was a big difference. But also Liverpool themselves, they just passed the ball around Fernandinho at will, and I know he's going to be leaving Manchester City at the end of the season, so there's not going to be two more opportunities for him to play against Liverpool, but that certainly wasn't one of his best.
No, definitely. The Reds are then heading back for a third visit to Wembley this season. We'll have to wait and find out tomorrow if it will be Crystal Palace or Chelsea that they will face in their first FA Cup final for 10 years. But from myself, Guy Clarke and Matt Addison, thanks for joining us here for this edition of The Debrief. It's bye for now.